He asked her once, awkwardly, quietly, what she thought about his size. She smiled, kissed his cheek and said it was perfect. But the look in his eyes lingered. Not because he didn't believe her, but because a deeper fear still lived inside him. One that had been growing long before her, planted by locker room jokes, pornographic fantasies, and years of unspoken comparison. This is the conversation most couples never have. The one that lives beneath the surface, hidden behind compliments, nervous laughter and silence. Because when it comes to size, especially his size, women often know exactly what they think. They've just learned it's safer not to say it out loud. Why? Because the male ego is fragile. And the topic of size is one of its most vulnerable pressure points. From a young age, men are taught that size equals power, performance and pride. Bigger is better. Bigger means stronger. Bigger means more desirable. And when that belief becomes part of a man's identity, any suggestion otherwise feels like an attack. So women stay silent, not because they don't have thoughts, but because they're afraid of what the truth might cost them. The irony is this: what most women actually think about size is far more nuanced, and far less judgmental, than men imagine. Ask women in private and you'll hear a very different story. You'll hear about partners who were generous, attentive and unforgettable without being big. You'll hear about encounters where size meant nothing and connection meant everything. You'll hear over and over again that what makes intimacy powerful isn't what's in his pants, but what's in his presence. Yet most women won't say these things aloud, especially to their partners. They know the weight that the question carries. They know that even a moment of hesitation, even a too long pause before answering, could trigger a spiral of insecurity that has nothing to do with reality, and everything to do with cultural conditioning. Because the world has sold men a lie. A lie that their worth as lovers, even as men, can be measured with a ruler. And when that lie takes root, it doesn't just affect how men see themselves. It affects how they show up in the bedroom, in their relationships and in their confidence. So women navigate carefully. They offer reassurance not because they're hiding the truth, but because the truth is already distorted in his mind. She knows that telling him you're enough isn't just about size. It's about healing the part of him that was taught he never would be. Here's what most women won't say, but deeply believe. Size alone does not create pleasure. It does not sustain connection. It does not unlock desire. What does instead is presence. A man who listens, who responds, who is not so busy trying to perform that he forgets to feel. A man who touches with attention, not ego. Who enters a moment not to conquer it but to explore it. With patience, with curiosity, with care. When a woman feels emotionally safe, when she knows her body isn't being judged or pressured, her nervous system relaxes. And from that space, true arousal begins. No amount of size can compete with a man who knows how to look into her eyes and ask, "What do you like?" and then truly listen to the answer. But we rarely talk about this, because women have been taught something too. That speaking about sex honestly might make them seem ungrateful, too demanding, too complicated. That if they're with a good guy, they should just be happy no matter what. So they smile. They fake it. Not because they're dishonest, but because they're protective. Of the man. Of the moment. Of the fragile trust that holds everything together. And yet, inside, many women are screaming for something deeper. Not necessarily bigger, but deeper. Not in inches, but in meaning. What's tragic is that so many men obsess over size, when what matters most is something entirely within their control. Enthusiasm. Adaptability. Kindness. The willingness to ask, "How was that?" and not flinch if the answer is anything but perfect. The confidence to understand that pleasure is a shared journey, not a one-time performance. The best lovers aren't always the biggest. They're the most attuned. They pay attention to the rhythm of breath, the arch of the spine, the quiet moan that says, "More of that." They don't assume. They discover. They don't push harder. They go slower. And in doing so, they create an experience that no anatomy chart can predict, and no measurement can define. So what do women secretly think about size? They think it's overhyped. They think it's misunderstood. They think it's often an excuse men use to avoid doing the deeper work. The emotional work, the relational work, the vulnerable work that real intimacy demands. And why don't they say it? Because when they do, they're not always believed. Because sometimes the man they love is still wrestling with his own shame, so deeply that even reassurance feels like a lie. So they stay quiet, hoping one day he'll learn that he was enough all along. And maybe that's the truth we need to say more often. Not as a strategy to soothe but as a fact to honor. You are not measured by size. You are remembered by presence. And no one can teach you that, but you.